Our first panelist is a nationally acclaimed singer-songwriter who has shared the stage with some of the biggest names in acoustic music like Sean Colvin, Dar Williams, and Ellis Paul. The recent release of his 6th album, Hope Is, has been getting radio attention all over the country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patrick Fitzsimmons. Next is a local singer-songwriter in the midst of releasing his debut album this year entitled Many Things and Many Scenes. He's known for sharing the stage with local acts such as the Wee Folk Orchestra and the Windwoods, as well as collaborating with band members of Ween and Trey Anastasio, drawing influences from artists like Leonard Cohen and Tom Waits. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joe Adler. It's hard memorizing all that stuff. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your busy schedules to educate us on the do's and don'ts and how you have what you have found good and bad in getting your music from the studio to the fans. There's a wide range of experience here, so I'm pretty excited to jump right on in. Why don't both of you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you started and how you came to get here in your musical journey? Okay. Sure.
I actually started as a drummer back in New Jersey in a high school band.
Jersey.
And that band eventually, we went through high school and college together, and we eventually got signed to RCA Records. And it was called From Good Homes. We toured around the country and had about a 10-year run with that and broke up in '99. And at that point, I moved to Vermont and started doing the singer-songwriter thing, where I'd always been kind of fooling with the guitar, but as the band progressed throughout that the 90s, I got more and more serious about the guitar and kind of was a very late bloomer with writing songs, and it just became pretty much all I wanted to do musically, for the most part. And so, so since about '99, I've been doing some drumming in there, but mostly the singer-songwriter thing, and writing tunes, and playing around. Mostly just the Northeast these days. Not so much national touring.
Yep. Great.
Yep.
Thanks. Joe?
Well, first of all, it's good to always remember you're a drummer. Good drummer is always hard to come by.
Loud ones are pretty easy to find, though.
I think it's Kelly Raven's playing, right?
Sorry?
Kelly Raven's playing, not Deb, right? Later on?
No, it's Deb.
Oh,
That's what I saw.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, my name's Joe Adler, and I am a transplant to Vermont. Got here a little over 10 years ago from Washington, D.C. Grew up around music. My dad's a Dixieland clarinet player, band leader, and a singer-songwriter. It's kind of, where I find myself, whether I'm with a band or what I'm doing. I came up to Vermont just to kind of expand on my experiences. I lived in D.C. for most of my life, lived in California for a little bit, and this music scene up here just is such a blessing. We all really should appreciate all the great stuff and great people that we have up here and the resources. Kind of right now where I find myself is as a singer-songwriter on a few days of the week or a few hours of the morning, and curating a music venue and general managing a restaurant and bar in Burlington on the other hand. So so really kind of I've been looking forward to this panel discussion and kind of really talking about these things and getting music out there to the people and to the fans and exposing more people to local art is one of my biggest causes. And so
Great.
Thank you guys and Big Heavy World for having me here today.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. Joe, you might want to hold on to that for a little while. We're going to talk a little bit about, like I said, fundraising and getting your music from the studio to the fans. One of the things that I think we might want to touch on a little bit, a lot of people talk about, fan fundraising has become the big buzzword lately, mostly to record record an album, and I know that you had a Kickstarter campaign.
Yep.
Why don't you tell me about that experience and what decisions you had to make, what you were weighing against, competitors like GoFundMe and Pledge Music and things like that. And was it mostly geared towards the studio recording? Did you factor in anything when it came into promotions and marketing and things like that?
Yeah, I really debated for a long time and talked to a lot of friends at pretty much every level of the game, and got a lot of perspectives on crowdsourcing and when it's appropriate and not appropriate, and lots of opinions. I feel like for myself, the way that I viewed the process was to offer a pre-order for the album.
So you did a pre-order, pre-sale?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was $15, and you get it mailed out to you, CD.
That's a bargain.
Well, I really just wanted people to feel like they were part of something.
Mhm.
So I had a professional video done up. Ironically, filmed the video almost nearly 8 years to the day at the same spot where I wrote the earliest song that's on the album. Realized that when I got out there.
Oh,
Started
wow.
finding all these interesting synchronicities happening throughout the process of getting this album together. And to be honest, I think we're in about month 16 right now of the process, and it's still chugging along. And right now, the final mixes are over at Tank Studios, ready to be mastered, and we're going back and reprinting some of the mixes and separating them out and going back. It's been a real learning experience, but not to digress. To go back to what your original question was, I factored in the project itself, which was basically paying the musicians who were on like more than 50% of the album, studio time, mastering, having enough printed for 200 copies, which 100 of those were 116 of those are spoken for through the Kickstarter.
And the pre-sales and things.
Yeah, through the, people gave anything from $5 just to be a part of it up to like $500, which was just a blessing. And where they came from was very surprising. With Kickstarter, you see exactly who gives, when they give, and how much they give. And that was a very humbling experience.
That's great.
Someone that you met 15 years ago that, you stayed friends with, occasionally, giving hundreds of dollars to you just out of the blue, just to help out.
That's gotta be a good feeling.
Yeah, really good feeling.
Did you find that when you were putting together the incentives, I know, I don't know if anyone's really familiar with how Kickstarter works, but you actually kind of have to apply. You have to hope, send something to the people at Kickstarter with an idea. If it gets accepted, then you have to pretty much offer incentives to them. Once they donate said amount of money, then you provide some kind of incentive and reward for that. Did you find that any of the incentives that you offered your people, did you take into consideration, or do you think it has or may end up being a factor in helping to continue to promote your album? Do you think Kickstarter is a good format for that? The incentives portion.
I tried to offer rewards that, people could kind of get something cool out of, like whenever the album gets done and we do a release party, coming out and hanging out with all the musicians who are on the album, who are going to be part of the release party, having dinner with us, just being a part of it, coming out with the sound check,
right?
That kind of thing. Another level was having me and my guitar player, Eric Siegelstad, record cover songs of their choice. So we had a couple of those. I think we have 4 or 5 songs that are due, and people got really excited about that. So it's just looking at ways to get people involved. I think ultimately, we were talking a little bit about this, before the panel started, but I don't know how much an album really influences your connection to your audience. I think really what it all really comes down to is like your personal connection with people, and you know, having the album, the merch to sell. I just came from a concert last night, and I bought a pendant that was handmade, one of a kind in Haiti.
Cool.
I bought some really cool pieces of merch at concerts. I don't generally buy CDs because I get the downloads.
Isn't that the
when they
funniest
come
thing?
out.
We as artists, I actually haven't bought an album in a long time myself, and we're musicians.
I've bought a lot.
Sad.
I bought a lot online. I've downloaded a lot. I get a lot of albums in the mail. You know, as
Purchasing them online, that's a topic we'll touch on in a second. Yeah,
Yep,
you make a good point.
But you know, just to kind of wrap the Kickstarter incentives thing down. It was just it really what do I think would really bring somebody into the project? How can they be a part of this?
Right.
Just like when you're playing live, like looking someone in the face, in the eye when you're singing, or just finding those small moments, that's the best connection that you can have, and then they'll get the word out there for you.
Right. I wholeheartedly agree. We were talking a little bit about you mentioned something about having dinner. I did a Kickstarter for mine, and I like to have a little bit of fun with it, so I said, I actually had donations up to $1,000, and I didn't really think anyone would do anything else, and it didn't take. But I think it's a good way to have fun with your audience. For $1,500, that would have flew anywhere in the world and cooked you dinner and had a concert in your house. No one took it, but I think it's a good way to actually portray a little bit of your personality, as silly as it might be, to people as well. But I think the incentive portion for Kickstarter is a really good way to help promote yourself on an ongoing basis. It helps them realize what you're willing to do to get your music out there. Patrick, have you ever done any fan fundraising before? In your vast experience, you have.
Yeah, well,
Awesome.
not a Kickstarter. I kind of did Kickstarter before there was a Kickstarter on my second album. I had
Really?
a demo. This was back in 2001, 2002. So I guess my first album came out in 2001, and so I was still busy kind of recouping. Just, I basically spent all my money making that one, and so, but I had a demo tape that I had sent to a radio station in Jersey, and they started playing some of the songs off that demo.
Wow.
And so I was getting requests for those songs, and so basically what I did is I just contacted my, because I'd get different emails from people saying, oh, we heard this song on the radio, when are you gonna record that, when are you gonna release that? And rather than wanting to release the demo, I wanted to go into the studio and do it right. Those songs and a bunch of others I had been writing, but I wasn't financially ready to make another album.
Right.
And so I sat on this idea for probably 6 months about what if I just, because it seemed so simple at first, but it seemed so strange also at the same time, that, well, okay, so if all these people want these songs, what if they just pay for it beforehand?
Right.
So there's a level of trust. It's like, so I'm not going to take all the money and go to Mexico or something like this. So
Why not?
so I worked up this email to my fan base and reworked it, and finally a friend said, okay, I've read like 10 different versions of this email. It's time to hit send. And so I did that, and it basically explained that I would love to make a new album, but I can't finance it right now. But if everybody, and at this point, because I've done this for every album I've done so far, and it's changed throughout, but for this initial one, it was just like Joe was saying, it was $15. That was just you'd just get the album, and an incentive for pre-ordering was a bonus CD. So I would go in the studio and just kind of live play 4 or 5 other songs that either didn't make the album, or older songs, or a cover song or two. And that sort of was the incentive, this whole incentive. So I sent out this email really kind of scared on how people would react, like, that's crazy, or
Right.
that sort of pre-order kind of thing. And I got a great response, and it was a very happy day. And so, and actually when I sent this out, I didn't say I'm going to make this album. I just said, what do you guys think of this idea? just don't commit to it. Just say like you would be into it. And
Wow.
and so when all the emails came back, I said, okay. Then I sent another email. So okay, we're making a record, and that's the way it felt immediately. Like, hey, we are making a record.
Oh, that's
'cause
cool.
we kind of decided all together, like, okay, what do you think about this idea? I like this idea. Like, okay, let's make a record. So that's was very successful in front of the entire record.
Wow.
And so I've done that since. And this last record I put out, I was thinking about doing a Kickstarter, because that has it all down in, kind of down to a format. And but I might still do it for the next album. But I've kind of modified the whole approach through the years. So by the time Kickstarter came out, I actually did have incentive things where it was before the Kickstarter thing was invented. I was doing things like house concerts, like your
Yeah.
stuff like that. For like $1,000, you have a house concert, or different. I forget my other incentives. Oh, it was basically multiple CDs. So for one CD and the bonus thing, it's $25. For that, plus it being signed, is more. And so these different levels.
Tiers, right?
And so the highest tier being the house concert.
Right.
Yeah, and that was something that a friend of mine told me, we were talking about it, and she goes, well, I think if you give people the chance, they'll give more than just the $15
Right.
for the record and the thing. They might want to. And that whole concept really kind of blew my mind. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? But why? I said, because they're your fans. Maybe they'll just want to help more.
Yeah.
And then I felt a little funny, well, yeah, but I just want to give them a CD, and they're going to pay for a CD. That's it. And just put it out there and give them the chance.
Right.
And that made a big difference. I mean, when I did I guess it was 2 CDs ago, when I started doing the incentive things, I got 7 house concerts. So that was $7,000 right there.
Wow.
And
Awesome.
it was something I never would have thought of. My friend was just like, well, just put it out there,
Right.
and see what, people, maybe they'll all just go for the $15 one. But
Right.
yeah, so it was,
That's great.
yeah, so it definitely works. I mean,
For
but it's
sure.
all based on your fan base,
Right.
With a Kickstarter kind of thing is great because it's your fan base. Of course, you'll send that through, but it also can be your Facebook people. It can be your, well, I guess that could be if you're doing it yourself too, but just I guess the mechanized way they have it down, like that format, they really got it down to a science. Then if you're if you've sponsored someone else's Kickstarter thing, you're on the Kickstarter kind of email, so you get all these things like projects we love,
Right.
things, and so you're actually introduced, your fans are introduced to other people, and so it's a good way to get it out there.
It's interesting that how you've approached it over from album to album, and you mentioned a couple of times the word fan base, and I think the gist and the point of today's panel is how to get your music from the studio to your fan base. And I think it's important maybe to ask how in today's day and age have you both tackled gaining and maintaining a fan base?
I have
I know,
no idea.
It's the quintessential question.
Man, I have no idea. It varies from show to show. I'm not trying to push myself super far out there. I love my life here, and I love what I do in terms of being a part of the community. And I feel like as a singer-songwriter, that's just extended out beyond that. I play out a lot. I write a lot of music, and I'd say the connections that I've made generally come from those intimate shows, where there are like 15, 20 people out there in a listening room who are, I don't know if they're looking for something or what, but they find that connection in your music. And nurturing those relationships. When somebody asks about a lyric or a song, it's like, it means the world to me. For me, I don't really think about a fan base. I don't really think about, I don't really think about it as a career path. I kind of look at it as just sharing like my experience, running it up the flagpole, seeing who salutes, and just doing it. You know, it's kind of like, I think the songs that made it on my album were the songs that I felt like I've had people have personal experiences with, that have asked about the lyrics, who've had, it just felt like, you know, if I'm gonna do this, go through with this big experience. I mean, we had like 19 different musicians on the album. We recorded, you know, like 3 or 4 times a week for like 3 months. I got to play with some people who I idolize. You know, that was over a year ago. A lot of those guys, you know, one of them's out on the road playing major festivals in one of the most highly regarded bands in the country right now. The drummer who played on the album, Corey Wilhelm, who plays with Bombino now, played, you know, 2 sets at Bonnaroo this past year. You know,
Awesome.
crazy. And so, you know, it was a real, you know, I know I'm jumping around a lot right now, but, you know, just art, you know, and music and collaboration and community, I think that's what's important to me personally. Not building a fan base, not just having those connections.
Just getting out there.
Yeah, just getting it out there. Just the time in the studio. You know, any musician out there, if you've got 10 songs and you can get your budget together to do it and enjoy it and embrace it and cherish those times, and don't look at it as a job. Look at it as just part of your experience. You know, I had so many beautiful, beautiful times with people who are, you know, were new friends and who are now close personal friends, and people who would stop by the studio and just to kind of check it out. And we had, and the most magical part of it was just those things that we wouldn't plan on. You know, I had 3 singers come out one day to all record different tracks and different things. And, you know, we're all just kind of, you know, fooling around and, just, you know, listening to some of the takes or whatever. And we had this wild idea to do like a doo-wop, you know, backup vocal section. And the 3 of them, you know, went outside and 15 minutes came back with this 3-part female vocal harmony that just defined like what the song is. You know, it just gave it this like this pulse and this thing that just came out of laughing together and sharing together. And I'm not really the one to talk to about like, you know, building your fan base and doing this professionally, because I just love it. I love every time, you know, I sit down with someone to play music or to write. Writing together with somebody is one of the most, you know, enlightening experiences I think you can have. But yeah, I think it's all just about the community. You know,
Getting out there
your
and
fan
getting
base,
involved.
Yeah, your fan base, bringing people in, making people feel welcome,
Yeah.
just like you would be hosting someone at your house. You know, if you can make people feel warm and you know, listen and pay attention, you know, and make that a experience that's shared back and forth between you and your audience, I think that at whatever level you're at, you've accomplished something.
Patrick, has there been any science or method to the madness of getting building a fan base?
Well, I think I totally agree with Joe. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but it's connecting.
Right.
It's connecting with people, either whether it's through their, you know, through their ears and their eyes at a gig, you know, and their hearts, and then nurturing that sort of connection you've made through your emails and your websites and all the different ways with, you know, Facebook and stuff like that. I'm not great at doing that, because to me it's like I would much rather just keep playing gigs and
Right.
and I'll send out the emails, but I'm such a bad Facebooker, and I know some musicians just work it so well with the invitations, and so I'm still, you know,
Yeah.
trying to get better at that stuff. But yeah, I mean, regardless of of whether it's at the gig or it's on your computer, it's about making a connection. You know, and your decisions, like whether what songs you're going to put on the album and stuff like that, definitely are sort of like inspired by the connections you've made, whether the songs that seem to be particularly powerful to people and stuff like that. But yeah, so I mean, the email list, when I first started, there wasn't any Facebook, and well, there actually wasn't even like the internet kind of stuff. But when I started doing the singer-songwriter thing, there was. It was just new. And it was because I remember back in the days when I was in this band and we were living in New York City, and this is, you know, before we got signed and stuff like this. How laborious the process of getting the word out was for your gigs, because you'd come up with these cards, right? And you print all your gigs on the cards, and
the postcard method.
They had to be printed up, then they had to be stamped.
Yeah.
And of course, you had your email list, and so they were written in, or they were on a computer. You put them all on those little stickums, but very, very labor intensive. And then you're mailing these things, and that was a lot. You're putting a stamp on each one of these postcards.
Right.
And it takes a couple weeks for this whole process to happen. And in the meantime, maybe 3 more gigs were booked.
Right.
And so now you're sending out a card that doesn't have the 3 gigs on it. So it was a lot of work.
Wow.
And I took on the job in the band that I was in, being the email guy, the email list guy, and make sure that everyone that wanted to see and get on the email list, that the gigs did. And so I was also getting them out there. The email, mailing list.
Right.
It's so funny, it wasn't email back then, it was just a mailing list, but snail mail to get all these addresses, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, a lot of work. So when the email thing started happening, and it was nice because now it was my own career. It wasn't a band, we didn't have a manager, we didn't have, in the band I was in, by the time we had finished up, we had managers and road managers and record companies and stuff like this, and so when I started doing this myself, I literally was all by myself, so getting the word out was just up to me, and it was a lot easier just being able to hit send as opposed to, you type all the stuff out, and then if another gig comes in and, another day, you just type it, another additional gig or whatever, you send a whole monthly thing or just gig by gig, whatever. But yeah, so email is definitely, and the internet and websites has made it so much easier to stay in touch and let your fan base know what you're doing.
Given, it's a nice segue to the next portion that I wanted to talk about, was today's modern world with digital this and internet that and Facebook stuff and Twitter, which I still don't have a Twitter account because it's just one more thing I gotta freaking maintain.
Right. That's the thing.
It's so much maintenance. It's like we build all these things to make things more convenient for us so we can spread the word faster, but now there's just so many ways to do it, and everyone has at least one of each, and it's just I can't wrap my head around maintaining all of that. But how do you feel the musical landscape of things and the process of getting the word out has changed since the age of Facebook and things like that? I know that you touched a little bit on it now, but I mean, do either of you work with any kind of song placement agencies or anything like that? Promotion managers?
Well, there's Bluebird Promotions that's also helped me put out this last record.
It was local.
Yes, now it's big.
Yeah.
Glory, who runs that whole thing, she sends, there's a few artists on her roster, and she sends songs down to this company in Nashville, and they try to get them out there.
Wow.
So that's one avenue you could do it. Try to get it to publishers, or there's more and more, because it's so tough to get it to call it unsolicited music, to publishers. So now there's a lot of middlemen they kind of are in touch with all the people looking for songs down in Nashville or out in Los Angeles, New York, and stuff like this. They kind of know what they want, and so they get a bunch of stuff and they'll send it on. And therefore, it's not so unsolicited. It's coming from these supposedly, hopefully, reputable companies that are sending them then on to the publishers or managers of other artists. Or
Have you found personally success in going that route?
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm not yet. I'm not that it's been, well, I mean, it's unsuccessful in that I haven't sold the song
Right.
to dough, and that would be nice. A few of the songs have been passed on to other artists, but quite a few, but that's like the bait, you know.
Right, right,
So
right.
then you hear back, or you don't hear back, basically. But yeah, that's one way to
Right.
get them out there.
I mean, the only real selling that I've done has been as a producer and a collaborator on some stuff that was sold to like MTV and ESPN for different projects. The music itself started off for a specific project that we'd been hired to do, and then we compiled it, sent it over to a company that places for all sorts of TV networks and indie film productions. Ironically, I think and it was, you know, kind of like background instrumental music
Right.
that we put together, and a lot of it ended up getting used on MTV Road Rules or one of those
Cool.
reality shows. Not the place where you kind of picture your work being, or at least I would picture my work being. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, you know, getting your music out there to companies to sell as, you know, songs, to have other performers record, or to have, I think really a lot of money is to be made with good songs, having them placed in films. And there are only a few key services that work with the majors, so it's hard to get yourself in the door. It took us a year to get our music approved in the service that we used, and that was with having a direct personal connection to one of the people who started that business. So but you know, after it's placed, you get your stuff placed there, it's just working over and over and over again, and the more stuff gets used, the more people even have interest in it, it gets passed around, you know, like Patrick's saying, and
Right.
you know, and you know, there are very few places that, you know, the majors will trust, and it's based on years and years and years and years of relationships, and yeah, kind of working it. Not, you know, if you're trying to do it, you know, don't just record your album and get it done and just let it sit there and, you know, put it out there. I mean, even with disc makers, you know, who's printing my album, they have a whole service where, you know, I don't know to what extent, but they shop your music around a little bit for you.
I use disc makers myself. They have a digital online package.
Yep.
It's a online radio distribution center. I think there's like 60 different online radio stations worldwide. Spotify is one of them,
Yep.
which is good. Pandora, unfortunately, is not, because I think you actually have to pay as an artist for a page, for like a profile as an artist, and then once you build that, then people can subscribe to your page. It's much like a YouTube kind of thing.
Yeah.
But of all the 60 some odd radio stations, Spotify was really the only one that I recognized. But yeah, they do. It's fairly inexpensive. It's only like $60, and it's only a one-time fee.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it seems like it's something that's worthwhile. You know, if you're trying to make your songwriting your career, you know, do the legwork and, you know, fly down to, you know, there are lots of workshops and conferences, you know, that are held by, you know, the major publishing companies, and you know, the South by Southwest, you know, just happened, which is one of the biggest networking opportunities for a musician in this day and age. You know, I was hanging out with a friend from a band from Northampton last night who just got back from South by Southwest, and just her description of, as a first-time band going down there and going through the process was just enlightening, you know, and just how much of it is just, you know, being there, you know. It's the music and entertainment business. You cannot sit at home. You have to be out there. You have to be connecting with people and having those interactions. And you know, so if you are trying to become, you know, a songwriter and sell your songs in whatever format, going out there and trying to, you know, be at the same events as the people who would be buying your music or pitching your music is a very, very important step. I went to a conference at the Woodstock Film Festival. I think it was run by BMI, and had some of their artists and people from every aspect of what they do, and it was very, very enlightening, just to kind of, you know, see what happens once your idea and your art comes out of your head and becomes a product, whether it's, you know, a song that's, you know, to be recorded by somebody or your own production, and see how they look at that as a commodity and a product and what they do with it. That kind of stuff really baffles my mind.
Patrick, what's that?
Videos.
Yeah, videos.
Actually, a lot of stuff that's going on.
Yeah, YouTube's going to be the next big thing for. Well, it already is. It's gaining a lot of momentum. I know that recently, Patrick, you have had some significant radio airplay with some of your singles off of Hope Is. And could you tell us a little bit about how that happened and what steps you had to go through to make that happen for you?
Well, there's a company called Independent Radio Contractors, basically, and you pay them, and they're salespeople, and they try to, they have hopefully good relations with a whole bunch of radio stations, program directors, and they try to get your music out to the program directors at the different radio stations, and you hire according to the genre you want to get your music out to. I mean, whether it's AAA, country music, it's pop music and stuff like that. So when you're talking about pop and country and stuff like that, it's basically a lot more money because it's much harder to get your stuff out to those kind of radio stations, where college and some AAA, non-commercial AAA particularly, is a lot easier, and more affordable, therefore, to hire someone to do that. So we did this on the last album. I did it on the last 2 or 3 albums, I think. We hire this person for a certain amount of time, generally, 2 or 3 months is what they think successful radio campaign, because they send it out and they follow it up, they follow it up again, and then if it kind of takes hold, then they want to give it a few weeks, and then maybe they'll do another song off the album. So it's, you're basically hiring a sales guy to get your stuff, and it's been, as far as my stuff being played around, it's, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and send it out to all these radio stations myself. It's just so labor intensive, and also it's, again, for a lot of stations, it's just going to go in a big pile of people that they don't know where it's coming from, and they get thousands of these discs a week. So if it's coming from someone with a reputation, it's like okay, because they're going to call and follow up and say, "Can you listen to this?" So I've had a limited amount of success with that sort of approach.
And it was called Independent
Radio Contractor. Yeah.
Independent Radio Contractor.
There's a lot of there's just so many people trying to do it these days because the technology to make an album has become so cheap, not cheap, but much less expensive, and you could basically make a record in
your house.
Yeah. So
David Gray.
There's a lot of them out there. So there's a lot of people who want to get their music out there. So there's a lot of people who are willing to take your money and get your music out there. Some of them very reputable, some of them not so much. So it's you have to really pay attention and see who's on the roster, talk to other people that have worked with them, because there's a lot of people who are just out there to kind of take your money.
Right. Well, thanks so much. We have a couple minutes left. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists at all regarding really anything? Anyone? Anyone at all? Anyone have questions? Okay. Perfect. Well, thanks so much for being here. I want to thank my guest, Joe Adler, Patrick Fitzsimmons, for joining us on our panel tonight. and giving us their insight. We hope all of you will stay with us for some live music coming up on Rocket Shop Live at 8 p.m. Tonight's lineup features Burlington singer-songwriter Deb Flanders and Burlington singer-songwriter Joshua Glass. I'm Steve Hartman. Thanks for joining us for the Musicians for Musicians panel. We'll see you back here at 8 p.m. for Rocket Shop Live, presented by Main Street Landing and Big Heavy World and RETN. And now bringing us up to the 8 o'clock hour, the Aerolites, filmed at their October 2013 CD release party at Nectar's and at a December 2012 performance at Higher Ground. It's the Aerolites with their song War Sucks and What About Me. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.